everyone, my name is Chloe, and today I'm here to talk about all the books that I read in the second half of May. So in May, I went through on a reading tear. Like, for some reason, I was just really motivated, really into it, and I was skipping other things in order to read, or I was doing everything with my audiobook, and I just had way more opportunities to read, and so my numbers are a little out of hand. So we're going to do this video like we always do. I'll talk about the stats for the second half of the month, and then I'll go through the books. I'll talk about the middle grade books that I read, and then the adult books that I read, and we'll talk about them. However, I think what I'm going to start doing, you guys let me know your thoughts, but I think I'm going to try to revive the Friday reads, and I'm going to start doing these weekly. And I'm not sure if it'll actually be on Fridays, but we'll see. I'm going to talk about a week of reading at a time with no stats. And then at the end of the month, I'll do monthly stats. The reason is because I have a lot of these books from the library, and I've been reading a ton. And so for the sake of the length of the video, for the sake of how long I have library books out, because I really like to have a physical copy, so I like to be able to keep them until I talk about them. So for all of those reasons, I think I'm going to try weekly. Let me know what your thoughts are. And then, like I said, I'll do a big stats video at the end of the month, and we'll just try that. We'll try that for the month of June, but this is going to be the same as always. And it's probably going to take me a week to start that, because I have to film on the weekends. And so the reading week hasn't happened yet. So we're going to see. We're going to just see how this goes. But let's do it old style. So in the second half of May, I read 25 books and DNF'd one. So that's crazy. I am including all of the books that I read with my kids because we are reading more upper middle grade. We're reading less of the picture on every page kind of middle grade. And I'm also doing a lot of pre-reading for my daughter. So I'm going to just include them all and talk about them all. I will have timestamps. So if you just want to skip to the adult, you can go ahead and do that. But so I read 25 books, DNF'd one. That's 6,514 pages, which is 407 pages per day. Now, some of you guys are going to ask, how is that possible? Well, I work out for an hour every morning, and I always watch YouTube while I do it. However, lately I've been just wanting to listen to audiobooks, and so that is a solid hour. Then my kids either nap or have quiet time, so that time I've been neglecting things to read. So that's how, and then at nighttime, and I have terrible insomnia, so that's how. The average length was 261 pages per book, so that middle grade kind of shifts that average down. So I read about a book and a half a day. 14 were novels, 7 were chapter books, 2 were graphic novels, and 2 were anthologies, which I loathe anthologies. So let's just keep talking. 14 were adult, 11 were middle grade, 11 came from my shelf, 14 from somewhere else, which after all my middle grade hauls lately, we need to be reading off our shelf. I used to give myself some more grace because I didn't have an extensive middle grade shelf. And so the books that we were reading from the library were mostly those. But now we have no excuse. Next is I read 10 using Libby, 9 just directly from the library, 3 from Kindle Unlimited, 2 from my shelf, and 1 from Hoopla. So I actually canceled Kindle Unlimited this month, and it was done May 25th or something. So that will be no more. I tried to squeeze them all in right at the end. I read 13 audiobooks, 11 physical, and 1 ebook, which I was thinking as I was doing these stats, I was like, how did I read 3 Kindle Unlimited, but only 1 ebook? Well, that's because Kindle Unlimited does have audio versions of some of them. So 2 of them were audio from Kindle Unlimited. 4 were new release, 21 were backlist. I read 5 mystery thriller, 5 nonfiction, 4 contemporary, 4 women's fiction, 2 classics, 2 cozy mysteries, 2 romance, and 1 Christian fiction. So Christian fiction and contemporary are both kind of genres that just are catch-all genres, because some may be, some of my mystery thrillers may have been Christian fiction, but they're more thriller than Christian fiction. It's all, the point of that is just for me to see kind of in general how I'm reading. So yeah, there's that. Then as far as star ratings goes, we have 1 DNF, 1 2-star, 1 3-star, 6 3.5 stars, 13 4 stars, which for me, a 4-star is I would definitely recommend this. It was good. It's not an all-time favorite, but it was good. 2 4.5 stars, and 2 5 stars. So my average was 3.88, which is crazy high for me. So that's a great month. So first, I'll tell you about the DNF. This one was one that I was reading for my book haul revisit, which I will have linked down below. It's Fountains of Silence by Rita Petties. So this is about the French, why don't I have it here? I don't know, but it's about the French Revolution or French Civil War and the time after, and how Francisco Franco ran the country afterwards. And I just couldn't get into it. I think it's a YA romance with that historical background, and it was jumping around too much. The chapters are short, which is great, but it was so jumpy that my brain could not compute. So I DNF'd that one, and I feel weird about it because Rita Petties is so widely loved, and every book of hers that I've read, I've liked less and less and less and less. So I think I'm going to take a break. Definitely not going to haul any, and we'll see from there. So now let's talk about the middle grade. Okay, so for the middle grade, we read 7 times 9 equals Trouble by Claudia Mills. This was so good. This is, she's got 2 math books that are just really interesting. This is about a little boy who he is trying to pass his math time test or his multiplication time test. So he's passed his 1s, he's passed his 2s, but he's stuck on something low, and he is the slowest one in his class. Everybody else, they have to get all the way up to their 12s, and so 12 times everything up to 12, and he's the one furthest behind, and it's almost the end of school, and if he doesn't get it, he doesn't get the ice cream cone that everybody else is getting. And so he's really trying to work on his multiplication, and my daughter, we're just introducing multiplication, and so she could really relate to some of this, and it was so cute. Highly recommend. Then we've got Puzzled, a memoir about growing up with OCD. So this is about Pan Cooke, who has OCD, and as a child trying to figure it out. And I honestly learned so much about this. I learned that it takes on average 11 years for somebody to get diagnosed with OCD because they just don't realize that it's not normal, that they don't have to live that way. And I really thought it was interesting how this book discussed intrusive thoughts or kind of out there thoughts happen to all of us. We all have thoughts that's what is that? But it is the ability to let it go. That is something that is hard for people struggling with OCD. They can't let it go. And so they either do compulsions to help them either physically or mentally do compulsions to help them ease the stress of the thoughts that they can't let go, or they do, other ruminating things. And so then the therapy here focused on learning to let things go. And while I don't have OCD myself, I could see how thinking about things differently and being able to let things go would be a helpful therapy regardless. And I just thought this was really interesting, and the awareness around it. Obviously, if it takes that long for somebody to get diagnosed, I don't think it's we're aware enough of what's going on in order to educate our kids and ourselves and all that. So I really like this. Then we have She Persisted, Florence Griffith Joyner, which, what a name. But She Persisted is a series of books that started as picture books and now they're chapter books. And Chelsea Clinton is the one who kind of spearheads this, but each one has a different author. So this is Rita Williams Garcia. And this is the story of Flojo. And Flojo was, I think she was her prime right around the time I was born, but I knew a lot about her, but I didn't know all of it. And her story is really interesting, and how her and the Joyners, Jackie Joyner, Kelsey, how they're all connected was really interesting, and I really enjoyed this book. Next, we have The Treasure Troop, which we've been reading. It's a 4-book series that I would highly recommend. If you've got a kiddo who likes puzzles or trying to figure things out or mysteries, this is so good. So this is about a group of 3 kids, Marley, Isla, and Cy, and they all knew this older man named Harry P. Summerling. Now, Harry P. Summerling always had a metal detector on him, always was looking for treasure, and then he was looking for treasure in the sea one day. His boat flipped over, and he is presumed dead. In his will, he left puzzles and treasure hunts for these kids. So the first book, they're finding the first treasure. This is number 2. It's the hidden room. They're trying to find another set of clues in his house, which is a crazy house. And then number 3, they are on Summer Island trying to find another prize. And we are currently reading The Final Treasure, and it's such a fun book. This one, number 3, actually ends on a cliffhanger that we were all jaw on the floor. So good. So if you get these books, make sure you get all 4 because you're going to want to read them quick. And they are not a picture on every page, but they're not too terribly long. So yeah, these are great books. Then we have the start of another series that I love, Kelsey Green, Reading Queen. So this one is about, it's Franklin School Friends is the name of the series. I can't remember if they're second grade, third grade, something like that. But my daughter is standing right here and she says third. So they have a reading contest. And so they have to read, as a school, they have to read 2,000 books by some date, but in 2 weeks, I think. And if so, their principal will shave his beard, and he's like got this iconic beard. And so Kelsey loves to read, and the top reader from each class is going to get their name on a plaque. So she is very, very motivated to read books. And now the teacher has it differentiated. So it's by reading level. And so she's reading, she's trying to find short books and books and poetry, but also it has to be approved at her reading level. And she's a really good reader. Now there's another kid in her class. I can't remember his name, but there's another kid and he's also a really good reader. So it's the competition between them, but also learning to help others, and how sometimes it's okay to not be the best if your heart's in the right place and if you're helping others and all that kind of stuff. This was so motivating to read, as a reader, it made us want to read more. And it was a good message. So I can't wait. Her best friends are Annika and Izzy, and Annika loves math and Izzy loves running. And so they both have their own books. And I really like that discussion too, of she's trying to peer pressure her friends into reading more so her class can win and so they can get there and all that kind of stuff. But she's really respectful of their boundaries of no, that's not our thing. That's your thing, whatever. And I really liked this book. Next, we have the start of a series, which is the third grade detectives, and we have the clue of the left-handed envelope. So I read this with my kids in hopes of having my daughter read the rest by herself. And this is another one that is really great for kids who like clues and mysteries and that kind of stuff, because this is about a girl who gets an anonymous kind of like an admirer's note, but very innocent in third grade. And they know that it was licked right to left. And so they're trying to figure it out. The class is trying to figure it out, as well as a detective. They're kind of trying to race to figure it out. And so this series, I there are definitely some uses of derogatory words that I'm not going to say right now, but, name calling that is not necessary. And I wish they would just leave that kind of stuff out of this, because it doesn't need to be there. And it just is it adds a level of crassness that doesn't need to be there. So that is there. But otherwise, this was good. Then this is not a novel, but we had the ultimate Bodypedia. So every day at rest time, we read the Bible, and we've been reading this Bodypedia by National Geographic Kids, and then we read whatever chapter book we're reading. And this, like I said, is by National Geographic Kids, and it is so much information about your body and how it works and all these things. And then it ends with a body atlas, and it tells about all the different systems kind of in briefer form and what's included. We loved this. There's an ultimate Mammalopedia or something that we might try next. Right now we're reading another Nat Geo Kids big book like this, and they're so great. So if you have access to these at your library or anything, these National Geographic Kids, if you've got a kid, there's bug ones, there's dino ones, there's all sorts of things. So definitely check these out. Then we have The 100 Dresses by Eleanor Estes. So this is about, this is told from 1940 something. This book was published. This is about a little girl who gets teased for her name, and because it's a Wanda Petrowski, I think is her name. And so she kind of gets teased for her name, and she's also poor. And so there's two girls. This is actually told from the perspective of one of the girls who is a part of the bullying. Now they bully her because they ask her, how many dresses do you have? Because she's wearing only the same kind of tattered dress all the time. So they ask her how many she has, and she says she has 100 dresses. And I don't want to say much more than that, but the book is told from the perspective of the best friend of the main bully. And there is the conversation that I loved in this book about the fact that not saying anything and standing up for somebody is equally as bad as being the perpetrator. And so our main character really feels the guilt of that, of standing by and letting it happen, even though she's not the one perpetrating and leading the bullying, she's just as equally at fault because she's not saying anything. So I love that conversation. Then we started Betsy, Tacy by Maude Hart Lovelace. This is about two girls who meet when they're 5 years old. Tacy moves in across the street from Betsy and they become best friends. And this is like a 10-book series, something like that. I had never read it. We actually listened to it on audio, and now we can't get a physical copy or an audio copy of number 2, Betsy, Tacy, and Tib. So I ordered like a kind of a bind up of a few of them because it was all I could find. So we're going to be reading Betsy, Tacy number 2. Probably, I don't know if my daughter will by herself or if we will together, but we really like this. And then the last middle grade is Timid. This is by Jonathan Todd, I believe. This is a graphic novel about a boy who moves to a new neighborhood, and he is black, and most of the kids are white. And so he's like trying to make friends with a couple black kids, but they are like bussed in from Boston because this is a suburbia situation. So he doesn't really feel in place there, and he's just very timid. He loves drawing and writing comic books, and so he's trying to find his place and trying to find his friend group and trying to, like, the pressures from his sister, the pressures from other kids, all that kind of stuff, trying to figure out where he belongs. Now, he does find his place, and the author, like, I think this is semi-autobiographical from the author, because the author said he never really found his place, and that makes me really sad to hear. But this was a decent 3.5 star. Like, for some reason, I don't think it's going to stick with me very long. It was pretty quick to read. Like, the font is pretty big. It's not going to take you long. But this was an all right graphic novel. So those are all the middle grades. So now let's get into the adult. Okay, so for the adult books, the first one I read was When I Found You by but I keep wanting to call this something different, but When I Found You by Catherine Ryan Hyde. So I read this for my book I'll revisit, so I won't go too in depth about my thoughts, but basically this is about a guy who finds a baby in the woods one day as he's about to go hunting, and the baby's just a couple days old, so he turns it into the authorities and really wants to raise this baby. However, the baby has a grandmother that claims him, and so he doesn't get to raise the child, but he does stay a part of the child's life, and the child has a lot of hard times growing up, and so they stay in each other's lives, and it's about that relationship, and it is so sweet. And this man, he and his wife had chosen to never have kids, and so he didn't really have that like paternal drive until he met this baby, and the way he loves him is so sacrificial and so like Christ-like, and so just unconditional love of a parent. And I really like this book. It'll definitely make you tear up at times, and this was good. Then we have another book that is kind of silly, SAHMIM. So this is about, it's all emails. So the book is told entirely in emails about this like chain of moms who are all stay-at-home moms, and they're just all emailing about their lives and about the different things going on. The one who runs it is very much like a goody two-shoes, holier than thou, annoying character. And so there's like side conversations going on, all of that. Honestly, throughout most of this book, I was like rolling my eyes, and there's quite a few characters, and it takes quite a while to like differentiate and care about them. But then by the end, I was like kind of wanting to read more because, gosh, I was like, there's a sequel, and like I didn't even really enjoy this book. It was a slog to get through despite the fact that it's all emails, and yet I like kind of want to read the next one because by the end I was attached to a couple of the characters. I wish there would have been less characters and we could have gone more in depth with the ones we had, and like maybe some conversation outside of just the emails I wish would have happened. But so this wasn't perfect for me, but I gave it 3.5 stars. I wouldn't say it's like the most relatable book. It's all a little hyperbolic, all a little silly, but it was still cute. Then we have Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. So this is a book that is about this girl who she was always kind of accused of killing her best friend, but she didn't do it. She doesn't have any memory of the night, and so she's not really sure, but she was, and there was never really enough to convict her, I think. And so now there's this podcast host that is wanting to kind of revive the story, and it's a cold case. It's never been solved, but it's also not really the topic. However, she is going back to her hometown for her grandmother's birthday. She loves her grandma more than anything, and so she's like, if anything's going to get me back, that's it. The podcaster goes back also, and so it's all of them trying to figure out what happened the night her best friend died. And honestly, I didn't know what was going on until the end. I'm really bad at guessing, so maybe take that with a grain of salt, but I was really intrigued. We've got this unreliable narrator because we don't know. She's kind of like... by resignation, kind of taken on the like persona of a killer, you know, and she does have intrusive thoughts, and she's having like the voice of her dead friend kind of in her head, which is really annoying on the audiobook. Honestly, I really wish that wasn't a part of this book, because I thought that was dumb and it was kind of annoying and kind of took you out of the story, and made it seem like a cheesy horror movie as opposed to like the actual kind of crazy mystery that it is. So overall, I really enjoyed this book and would recommend it. I gave it 4 stars. The podcast element is not like, it is the catalyst for her having a relationship with this guy, but it's not like, you don't get a ton of podcast clips or anything like that like you do in some of the other kind of podcast thrillers lately. So it's a part of it, not a huge part, but I was really intrigued and I enjoyed this. Then we have Not Her Daughter by Rhea Fry. This one I read for the Southern Charm Readathon, which I vlogged over on Patreon. So if you want to see the vlog, come on over to Patreon. But this is about a mother and, this woman who sees a mother and a daughter twice, and they are having kind of abusive interactions. So the mom is both physically and emotionally, verbally kind of abusive to her 5-year-old daughter. And so our main character, Sarah decides to take her and give her a better life. And so she is on the run with this little girl because, of course, the mom and dad want to find her, want her back, even though the way they kind of neglected her is how she was so easily taken. And it's a lot of back and forth. We get both the mom and Sarah's perspectives, and Sarah is one of the dumbest criminals ever. And so if that bothers you in books, you definitely have to suspend your disbelief with this one, because she would have gotten caught a bunch of times, I would think. But the resolution also felt really easy to this one. So this was not my favorite Rhea Fry. I would give it probably 3.5 stars. I was intrigued throughout. I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to know what was happening. There was that tension of like, the cops are constantly just one step behind her. So there's that tension. But there's a lot that felt really convenient and a lot you had to suspend your disbelief. So there's that. Then we have The Mother-in-Law by Sally Hepworth. This has been sitting on my bookshelf for far too long, and I'm so glad I read it. So this is about Lucy and Diana. They are, Lucy is the daughter-in-law, Diana is the mother-in-law, and they are from a wealthy family, but Diana refuses to help her kids. So Lucy's married to her son, and Diana's just hardened. Like, she had kind of a rough upbringing, and so she wants her kids to kind of learn some of the lessons she learned. So she's kind of a rough lady. And now in the very beginning, Diana is dead. And she said she had breast cancer, terminal breast cancer, and there's no evidence of cancer in her body. And so we're just trying to figure out what's going on. We watch through Lucy and Diana's perspectives. We get to know both of them better, as well as their relationship. And this was good. I could suspect what the end was. The twist of what happened to Diana, I kind of figured that out. But yeah, there's definitely trigger warnings for suicide, infertility, lots of stuff. So look up the trigger warnings for this, but I was thoroughly entertained by this. I really don't like the conversation around infertility in this book and kind of the trope that's portrayed here, but I was thoroughly entertained, so I gave this 4 stars. Next is Like Dandelion Dust by Karen Kingsbury. So this was like kind of a masochistic May, because there were a lot of books that like both made me angry and made me cry, and this was one of them. This is about a couple who they adopted a baby from birth. This woman gave up her baby because her husband was incarcerated for domestic abuse, and she didn't want her, like, she knew he would get out someday, and she didn't want her baby in danger, and so she gave up the baby. And now it's following the family that is raising him. And the husband does get out of jail, and he wants his kid back. And so it is a custody battle between them. And by golly, like they've had this baby for 5 years since he was born. The situation with this husband is not good. There's so many reasons that they don't want to give the child up, of course, and just the desperation of a parent to protect your child is something that you feel gutturally in this book. Like, this is angering because of the broken system of adoption and how easy you can find loopholes and things like that. And it's angering. It's heartbreaking. This was so good. But definitely one you're going to want to be like emotionally prepared for. Then we have the Boardwalk Bookshop, which is another one that I read for Southern Charm. So again, I'll try not to drone on too long about this. But it's about 3 women who all work together. They all share a building. One's a bookstore owner, one's a gift store owner, and one's like a bakery owner. They all work together and in the same building, and they have become friends. It's all their like romantic lives, their personal lives, all that. This is, they all have a romance, but I would say this is women's fiction. This was just okay for me. I gave it 3.5 stars. So there's that. Then we have, let's see what's next. Miss Julia Speaks Her Mind by Ann B. Ross. This is the first in the Miss Julia series. And this is about a woman whose husband has just died. It's a Southern story about a woman who's just been widowed. And then this woman shows up on her door and is like, hey, here's your husband's 9-year-old kid. I'm going to need you to watch him while I go get certified to be a esthetician. And so I can make money to support this kid. And so she's, of course, like, what? Because she didn't know her husband had a kid. And also, so she doesn't want to take care of the kid, but she knows she has to. This is definitely a book where the Christian community is not portrayed great. Her pastor is really aggressive and pushy and not good. And yet her faith in God is great. And so this, I don't know. I mean, I don't think this is a Christian. This is published by HarperCollins. It's not a Christian fiction. And the way some of the Christians are portrayed in this book is awful. Like, her pastor is awful. And there's another pastor that is awful in this story. So that kind of was a bummer. But like I said, our main character, Miss Julia, I really liked her faith and her motivation for doing things. And she had always been kind of meek, and her husband was very wealthy. And so she really bowed down to his decisions and all that kind of stuff. And now that he's gone, she's really speaking her mind. And this does turn into like a little bit of a mystery because somebody comes and takes the kid, and she's like happy to be rid of him, but also concerned for the kid. And it's a lot of miscommunication about who should have him, who shouldn't. So there's a little bit of a mystery, but really you read this book for Miss Julia because she's got a spunky personality. And this book also made me mad because of how aggressive her pastor was and how much I wanted her just to leave town, and she wouldn't. But I like this. This is a huge book series. I'm not sure how many there are. I know I have the first 8, so I will continue on. This wasn't my favorite book of all times, but probably a 3.5, 4 star. Then we've got, that was also for the Southern Charm Readathon. Then the last book for that is The Wives by Taryn Fisher. This one was fascinating. This is about a woman in a polygamous relationship in which her husband has 2 other wives, and her name is Thursday. Like, her name is Thursday. And so they jokingly call the other 2 Monday and Tuesday. And she is like kind of a Stepford wife, kind of a 1950s housewife, actually, where she wants to like be dressed to the nines, have a home-cooked dinner, all that kind of stuff when it's her time to be with him. And then she finds the name of, like, the actual name of one of the other women, and she starts to get curious. And now part of the situation is that he doesn't want anybody to know about the others. Like, they know they exist, but he doesn't want lives intertwined. And so she starts to kind of investigate, and she starts to question, like, is this right? Should I be kind of bowing down to him? And should I be like doing all this to make sure he's happy? Or do I have the right to be happy too? And so we have some unreliable narrator stuff going on with this because we just do. I'm not going to say anything more. There is a shift that happens about 50% of the book, the way into this book, where she becomes unreliable, and I didn't mind it, but I've seen other reviews of people that really didn't like it because it was an easy out for plot holes. It was, well, you just can't trust her. So whereas it's actually like, that wasn't really thought out. And so this book was very entertaining. Yeah, it definitely some triggers to look into this if you have any, kind of parenting, motherhood triggers. And yeah, I would say this is probably 4 stars. Then we have Risen Motherhood, Gospel Hope for Everyday Moms by Emily Jensen, and I can't remember the other author, but I will have it up. I listened to this podcast, Risen Motherhood, and they wrote this book, and it is so good. It's about just like finding God in the everyday, and just what God wants for mothers, and like what our role as mom means to God, and yet in a very realistic, not holier than thou, not preachy, not shaming way. And so I honestly read most of this, and then I texted a group of my friends and was like, hey, do you guys want to read this with me? Because they've got great discussion questions. So starting in 2 weeks, I'm going to have a group of women over to my house on Sunday evenings, and we're going to read this together. So I gave it 5 stars. I read a bunch of it, and I'm going to go ahead and reread it here in like 2 weeks. So there is that. Then we have Just for the Summer. Let's get it. Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I am shocked by how much I'm liking this series. The Part of Your World was fine. I didn't love it like everybody else did. I really loved Yours Truly. And then this one's not quite as good as Yours Truly for me, but I really like this one too. So this is about 2 people who have this curse, they think. When they break up with somebody, shortly thereafter, that person goes and finds their soulmate. So our main character, the guy, what's his name? Justin, he puts a Reddit thread about like this curse, and our main female, let's see, her name is Emma. She is like, hey, I've got that curse too. Now, Emma is a traveling nurse, so she gets to move around all the time, and she travels with her best friend. Her best friend is also a traveling nurse, so they live together everywhere they go, and they take turns deciding where they're going to go next. And so he's like, well, come to Minnesota and let's date. So then the next person we meet will be our soulmate. And so she does, and there's all sorts of parameters. It has to be at least 4 dates. They have to talk every day, et cetera, et cetera. So they have this arrangement just for the summer. But of course, real feelings are involved. Now, at that premise, I'm like, that sounds cute, but just okay. Well, this book is about so much more. This book honestly had me choked up. I'm not a big crier, and yet this was, like I said, masochistic May, because this one got me. So Emma has a lot of mommy issues. Her mom has been in and out of her life, and has a lot of issues. And Emma, my golly, she like has the forgiveness of a saint. And she always says, like, if you can choose anger or empathy, choose empathy every time. And so she's very empathetic of her mom, whereas her best friend's like, Emma, she's running over you, because she comes into their life in Minnesota and tries to kind of, be on her back. And yeah, so she has that issue going on. Then Justin has, his mother is about to go to jail for a crime she committed. And so he is about to take custody of his 3 younger siblings. And so there's so much depth to this, and what that does for their relationships, but also what that means for them as people. And it's so good. I mean, this was so good. I really enjoyed this quite a bit. Like I said, I teared up once in each of their stories personally. I had to laugh at this because so many times they say men with J names are the worst. And my husband has a J name. And I mean, obviously Justin does too. So they disprove that. But it just made me laugh because they're like, yep, men with J names, they're awful. And it made me laugh. Next we have Mindset by Carol S. Dweck. This one I gave 3 stars. This is about, so the reason I picked it up is because it is about having a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So a fixed mindset is basically black and white thinking, saying this is the way things are, this is the way they'll always be. I can't do a whole lot to change this because this is just how I am. This is how the situation is. These are my constraints. Whereas a growth mindset is kind of that 1% better, that we can always grow. We can always change. Things are always changing in ourselves. Our personalities can change. Our whatever we want to change. Our abilities can change. Whatever. Well, I tend to, in some areas, have a fixed mindset. And so I was really interested in reading this to gather tools for how to shift my mindset to that growth mindset, because I do believe, some things are really hard to change, but I do believe that everything can change. However, this book I felt really kind of harsh, and now maybe that's me because I do come from a fixed mindset kind of. I felt like it was kind of harsh and saying that people with fixed mindsets are narcissists and self-absorbed and all these things. Whereas I don't think that's the case. When you do have a fixed mindset, she talks about how you need to feel the need to prove yourself all the time because you think like this is who you are, so you have to kind of sell yourself to people. And so I could see where that would kind of lead into like some narcissism, I guess. I don't know. But she also spent a lot of time, like the majority of the book is examples of people in business, sports, relationships, and parenting, basically, I think, that have both fixed and growth mindsets. But most of it is saying like how unsuccessful these people with fixed mindsets were. There was the comparison to people with growth mindsets and how much more successful they were. But I just didn't feel like she really bridged that gap of like how to get from one to the other. I also think there was like a lot of privilege involved in that we don't recognize why people become stuck in the fixed mindset. You know, there's so much life and trauma and things that happen that cause you to be, or like childhood abuse, whatever it may be, that cause people to be in a fixed mindset, or even just like family of origin. Like none of the sources of mindset were discussed and like how to overcome them given that. And I really wanted that piece. So overall, that book was just okay. And then last is this American Girls About Town by Jennifer Weiner and a whole bunch of other like chick lit women's fiction authors. Now, this is a small spoiler for my huge library haul that is still coming because I got this at the library book sale. So I paid 50 cents for it, and it is a whole bunch, like, let's see if it tells me how many names there are. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 different 20, well, that's 20, 30, 40 page short stories from these people. And I liked probably 3 out of them. So this book is getting a 2.5 stars for me. It was not great. I liked Jennifer Weiner's. I think I liked Lauren Weisenberger. I found one other author that I liked in here, but I think I liked 4 out of all of them. So this one's going to get unhauled. It was a quick in and out, so there's that. So I'm going to go get one more thing that is not a book, but it is bookish. So I'm going to get that and tell you about it, and then we'll be done with this video. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is this anxiety scripture journal. This is Write the Word. I saw this like series, I guess, on Krista from Books and Jams channel. But it is really a fun devotional. So I'm trying to find a page. I mean, I did them all, but you write a certain scripture passage, then your reflection on that passage, and then a prayer for that topic. And I chose anxiety because that's something I struggle with. And so this one is, I forget how many, 67, but they have them on like fruits of the spirit, I don't know what else they have them on, but I really liked this because I'm somebody that I can read scripture, but I get a whole lot more out of it if I write it. So being able to write the verse or verses, some days are kind of long, some days are pretty short, but being able to write them and then kind of for the reflection, I used it as like a summary and then my prayer in that regard. And I do think like getting this anxiety one, some of them became kind of redundant, but that's also kind of the point of when you have anxiety to kind of drown out those thoughts with other ones. So I really liked this, and if you're looking for a devotional that takes maybe 5 minutes a day, check out the Write the Word. I got it on Amazon. I can try to link it down below. I don't know how to do that anymore, but we'll see. So that is everything that I read in the second half of May. I will say my June reading is slowing down a little bit, but because I'm back in my YouTube watching, because I was not doing that for a while, but I'm back wanting to do that. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on any of these books. Let me know how your second half of May was, and let me know your thoughts on having this weekly. I'm going to try it for June regardless, and then I just want you guys to be in contact letting me know which way you like better. So thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.